I think that that identifies those things that were not included in the quote-unquote installation, which included such things as the concrete padding, I don't know, off the top of my head. But I don't want to get in, I don't think we need to get into a harangue or disagreement about what installation is. I think that the attempt on this is to just stop everything at this point, and then we can figure out what we need to do.
May I, sir? I think the subject of this is Bonnet, Page, and Stone. Their contract specifically says installation is not included, not biomass. Biomass says everything having to do with installation is included. Bonnet, Page, and Stone's contract says that anything to do with installation is not included. So we're saying, fine, if that's what the contract says, no more monies will be spent for anything having to do with installation.
If I could, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The point of my motion is that the commissioners entered into an agreement that they assumed included total installation and startup. After the fact is coming to light that they did not have an agreement that included total installation and setup, and that it was going to be another expenditure of $375,000 to complete what they were not aware of. That's the point that I'm making in that. The point in number two is that we want them to cease spending money on the installation because they don't have the authority to expend that $375,000 without delegation approval. So we're asking them to stop, and that's what the intent is.
Go ahead, Representative Holden.
Thank you, Representative McCarthy, for your motion. And yeah, I agree. So could you read what Representative McConkie, sorry, what we have down as his being the motion, because he made some corrections there, which I think where the intent was right.
Okay, this is the way I have copied this. It is the delegation's understanding that the commissioners entered into a contract with biomass that did not include total installation and startup cost. The delegation instructs the commissioners to cease any expenditures from this point forward on any installation of the said pellet boilers. Is that essentially what you said?
Should we add that until the delegation has time to determine what should be done? I mean, it looks like they're just killing it now, and I think we're really killing it because we don't have answers to a lot of stuff. We're not killing installation per se. Would you consider modifying it a little more?
Well, I think the representative has the floor.
Well, I think I finally got down to the difference between installation and hookup. I think, okay, is that pouring the concrete pad, that is installation costs, and hookup is hooking the wires up. Is that where we're at? Is that what you guys are doing? Is pouring the pad and making adjustments to the room?
We're doing everything basically. This is Charlie, also from Biomass, and obviously everybody knows me. I think Randy from Bonnet, Page, and Stone, who seem to be the ones affected the most. I think the language is pretty clear. I'm not an attorney, but it basically, Charlie is installing his product. He has package boilers, he has an ash system, he has a silo for the wood pellets.
Right.
I mean, call installation what you want. We're kind of both installing things,
right.
But it's been closely coordinated with your engineer, with McGill Engineering. I mean, I've heard comments of duplicate cost, duplicate paying. There's none of that. It's coordinated. We're both installing equipment.
Right.
When I get a quote for painting, it's furnished and installed, but it's furnished and installed for the paint that the painter used. Very similar here. Charlie's providing silo, conveyors, cyclone, boilers. He's installing his equipment and fires it up once we bring power to it and all that. But it's burning locally. It's not heating the new nursing home. It's not heating the old nursing home. It's not interconnected in any way to sequence with your other buildings. It's just a boiler cooking in place. Our work is basically all the support work to give him a rated boiler room. In fact, the fire chief just left this morning, a few minutes ago. We've got approval that the firewalls are up, boiler room's built, doors are in, pads are poured, boilers are rigged in the room. And things are progressing quite nicely. But I think you're beating the words installation and so forth kind of to death unnecessarily, because we're really both installing items. It's just that we've picked up all the holes that have always been in biomass or the other 4 suppliers that you talked to. Originally, prior commissioners spoke with, I think, 4 or 5 different companies. And they were all very similar, and they were all very much supplying the same package. But it in no way does it integrate to your other buildings without what we're doing, if that makes sense.
Okay, I would suggest that among the difficulties in dealing with this has been the lack of specificity as to the specific jobs that were being accomplished and the cost at which they were being accomplished at. So that's where we have a lack of understanding. We did see the total contract at some point, but then I'm saying, I think you've heard it time and again, that the installation left a lot to be desired in the translation. We really don't see the items of installation enumerated and the cost for those specific jobs that were to be done. And I would assume that when you price out a job, you look at all the components and you add them up.
And that's the proposal that we submitted or offered to the commission. As you know, historically, we've been involved in this now for almost 2 years as a courtesy to help kind of shake out this process. And so I'm very familiar with what needed to be done. Unfortunately, it sounds like there was some communication problems amongst you folks as far as that understanding, because I tried to say to the folks that were at the boiler room the other day for the tour, is that budget has always exceeded that grant substantially. It's been, I know there's some discussion over whether it's 700, 800,000, whatever the total is. The grants, I believe, were 2 and 2 or 400,000, but the budget going back 2 years ago was always 600 plus. And it evolved in design. It started as a single pellet system. It ended up being a 2 pellet system via your engineers' decisions, because that made the most sense effectively for the county. So you have a 2 boiler system, a dual system to use a large boiler and a small boiler to more effectively take advantage of swing seasons and so forth. So it's been a pretty extensive process. I think maybe communication-wise, it doesn't sound like it got to all the parties to be as effectively as it could have. But I mean, going back to 2009, 2010, the budgets have been $600,000 or $700,000, even in the early going.
Okay. We do have a motion, by the way, and I don't think we've had a second to that.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay.
Dino,
No.
second.
Dino, you did.
Representative
Okay,
Scala
good.
seconded the motion.
All right. Okay, so go ahead, Representative
Yes,
McLaughlin.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm quoting from the contract, which is really non-specific. It says a lump sum of $375,000. It also says boilers, silos, fuel feed system, ash removal system, cyclone vent system, boiler operating and safety controls, including control panels, all associated accessories and boiler control wiring shall be 100% completed by the owner of the equipment or its supplier. Boiler silo startup and owner training shall also be by the owner's equipment supplier. So installation is completely negated. It's out of your contract. So, but anyway, a bid went out for installation, and we awarded a $375,000 contract for installation that it says in here you can't do.
Yes.
Somebody from this table, and I tried to get him here today, really needs to speak with the county's engineer who designed this system. Doug McGill, I invited this morning to come down here because I thought it would be beneficial for you folks to ask him questions. Unfortunately, he had a commitment because this was kind of last minute. He works for you. He designed this system. He will back up every piece of information. He designed the thing, how it works. When we say in our proposal, because the county has multiple contracts, and we say we're not installing the cyclone, the wood ash system, the pellet boilers, and so forth, it's because it's coordinated with Charlie's company. Charlie has that installation. So it's not that it doesn't exist or it isn't there. The installation of his equipment is his. All the peripheral work, creating a boiler room, creating pads for his silo, patching paving, handling the inspections, dealing with the fire department, that's us. So that fills the gaps. Some folks don't seem to want to hear that, but we're both doing installation. It's just different components of the job. And I guess I'm confused as to why it's such a struggle. But
Okay. Go ahead, Lex.
Okay, Representative McConkey.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to amend this. I would like to amend this. Part one staying the way it is. And it's a statement from the delegation, and I'm going to just explain. I'm not changing that first motion, but it's the belief of the delegation that the commissioners entered into an agreement, accepted grants under the impression that the installation was going to be included. Found out after the fact it wasn't. Second part of the motion. Until the delegations instructing the commissioners to stop any expenditures until such time that the commissioners demonstrate to the delegation that they have the authority to expend the additional $375,000.
Okay, why don't you go over that again, because you did change the first part of that.
I was speaking to my intent on the first part. I haven't changed anything.
Okay, so we're leaving part one as, it is the delegation's understanding that the commissioners entered into a contract with biomass that did not include total installation.
No, go ahead.
That
That should say that did include
That
the
did
total
not.
installation.
No.
Did
I'm
not.
saying
Did
they
not.
didn't have the understanding that it did not include
it was-
all of those costs.
It's on the second page of the contract.
That's point number one. I thought
Oh, I see what you're
You're saying we did,
Okay.
they
All right.
did not, because that's why we contracted with Bonnet Page and Stone.
we had to spend an extra $375,000.
Okay.
When they signed that contract, it's the understanding of the delegation that they didn't know all the costs were included. Because this number comes up again at $375,000.
So then we're going to add in place of the delegation instructs the commissioners, you're going to drop that out completely. Is that correct? And you're going to add?
It's part two, that we instruct the commissioners to stop any expenditures until such time that the commissioners demonstrate to the delegation that they have authority to expend the additional $375,000 for installation. I believe the part that I see as a delegation is that they're moving to expend monies, $375,000.
The delegation
that
directs
they don't have the authority to do on their own.
directs the commissioners to cease expenditures for, as we said before.
For the boiler, or for whatever.
Right. For installation.
Installation.
For unforeseen installation.
No, no, we
No.
Unforeseen, all right. The wording is so stupid.
until such time as the commissioners demonstrate to the delegation they have the authority to expend this money, or $375,000.
Okay, until such time as the commissioners demonstrate to the delegation.
That they have
Right.
the authority. I can't write that fast either.
Okay. Are we ready to try this again? Well, we do have, we'll need a motion to second that.
Correct, where I was the first one, I'll second this one as well.
Okay, so we do have the motion
An amendment.
and the amendment.
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. Oh, here it is, right here.
Why don't we vote on this amendment before we,
Yeah, you can't if we.
Yeah,
pass
before
this,
we do
can't have
another-
amendment, we pass this whole thing.
no,
only have
we're
one
voting
amendment
on the
on the
Well,
amendment.
we should be voting on the amendment.
Right, we should
Right,
vote
yeah.
on this amendment and either accept it or reject it, and then you make your amendment.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry,
Okay.
this is
You can only
I
have
thought you
one.
withdrew your motion and put a new motion. I
No, he
mean,
didn't withdraw.
Only if we reject
No.
it. Only if we reject
You
it.
can add
Okay.
another, you can
we
add
never
another
voted on the
motion.
first one, but go ahead. I mean,
We didn't have an amendment, we just had a motion.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay,
right, that's what I'm saying. So he just changed his motion. I
Right.
think.
That was a
We saw.
change.
that was an
We don't have
amendment.
an
that's-
amendment right now,
Right.
right?
And
So-
we don't actually have an
We don't have
amendment.
an
amendment.
It was
So
a,
I'd like to make a
We have a
motion.
motion, okay.
So we'll vote on the motion.
So you're going to amend the motion?
Has to be done before they vote on it.
Right.
Okay,
he's going to amend that motion as it was corrected. That's,
Yeah, as it was correct.
we do have a question though from, I'm sorry,
You have to vote on the motion first.
yes.
no,
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 no, I don't think so.
no, he's making a
He makes
motion.
an emotion, and then if we pass the amendment,
Oh, okay,
you
that's
can't
fine,
amend
that's,
it.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were going to do something, okay.
No.
Commissioner Sorensen, what,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, could I speak to the issue at hand?
yes, sure.
The delegation, I believe, is assuming that we didn't understand the first contract. The first contract had installation on the first page and had all the exclusions on the second page, okay? We signed a contract for $325,405 for the installation of the pellet furnaces, to connect them up to the storage container and do whatever they have to do within their own boilers, okay? All those exclusions that are on the second page, on the back page of that contract, which I signed, excluded the pads, the electricity, a lot of the other things that were included. For example, if you went to Sears and bought a washing machine and it was to be installed, they would come in, unpackage it, put it in, and they'd plug it into a circuit that's already existing. They'd plug the water into the water that would be existing. That's what Bonapage Stone is doing, is providing those other stuff that should already been in the house to connect that washer up. Okay? What this also does is, I believe Bonapage and Stone has already got commitments from their subcontractors, purchased materials to come in and install that. I don't know how that gets figured out as to where we stop. My understanding, and Randy Remick can speak to it, he told me a day or two ago that 90% of it was committed, of the $375,000. Okay, where are we coming up with the $375,000? It was started right from the beginning that we were going to have pellet furnaces in the complex. Okay? When we budgeted for our new nursing home, we had a contingency fund in there. So if we're putting in boilers into the nursing home, that boiler includes the pellet furnaces, and that would come out of the contingency money, the $375,000. Now, I believe when you delegation approved of the total cost of that new nursing home, that included the contingency money. And we have spent money in that contingency fund
for different things that went over. And I'm saying that those pellet boilers are in addition to the stove or the heat that's provided to the new nursing home. That's part of it. That's where that $375 comes from.
Okay, there is a question from Mr.
I
Leonard.
just have a quick comment here. Charlie just had a piece of paper that that he pulled from his file that I think helps document the history a little bit. April 12, 2010, from the county's engineer, from McGill Engineering, spells out very specifically the information that went to the 5 companies for the pellet boilers that could provide the equipment needed, the boilers and what Charlie is doing today. And with that, there is a few pages that describe what is to be provided by others. General contractor, mechanical, sprinkler, electrical, and it details that. So that's what the boiler equipment people use to quote their equipment. Right from the beginning, that's always been required. And I guess I had forgotten about this, but this is what went out to the pellet people, so that was, it's not a mystery that just arose. It's always been there, I guess is my point. And if this, a question just to consider from because I'm the one that seems to be the most affected with this motion, I would ask that I have a little direction when this is all done as to what stop in place means, in the sense that I have committed 6-figure subcontracts to people. It's not going to be pretty if we just shut it down, and that's not me talking. Subs are going to question their contracts, and what do we do? How do we stop it? Not that it can't be done, but it's something that certainly would have to be negotiated and sorted out. I think it would be a shame to have to do that, but that's obviously your call. But there are many people obviously affected that we would have to go down the line and deal with. So,
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Okay, yes, go ahead, Mr.
A motion's been made, and I believe we're in the process of amending that. Mr. Chairman, I would like to keep the business of the delegation here at this table and stop moving away from this table so that we can conclude this business. And then it'll be up to the commissioners what it is they would like to do after this is done, if it is voted successful. But I think we're delaying a process that we don't need to move outside of this table, and I would ask, Mr. Chairman, that we conclude our work first.
Okay, we do have a couple of hands, though. Commissioner Solomon.
I'd just like you to all be aware that there is an expiration date on the monies coming from the federal government for this. And the first $200,000 expires on 3/10 of this year. So keep that in mind, please.
I might add that in the subcommittee meeting, the subcommittee made known to the commissioners, and Bonnet, Page and Stone also thought it was a good idea that they should be moving immediately to ask for extensions on their contracts. That was over a week ago. I don't know how many times we have to make requests, but apparently they fall on deaf ears.
Representative Merrill.
Yeah, I've got to say this. I've been vacillating back and forth on this some time, because it appears to me there's been some errors made, some misunderstandings on this thing. I'm also concerned, as I've indicated, as what will happen to the contract. I'm also trying to take into consideration what my constituency wants, and finally, I'm taking into consideration, I think when I talk about this, the fact that in my 30-year career as an engineer, I know these things occur, and I know that in my own heart that the diagrams which are included with this contract are part of the contract. So despite any of my earlier things, and I also think that if we go ahead with this contract and we install it, it's going to be awfully hard to tear down the nursing home. And I think that's probably in the back of some people's minds also. But I'm going to vote against this. I can't, in good conscience, I have to vote against it, this motion.
Voting against the motion.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, I would like to point out that this contract that was let was to install a pellet boiler system. And we have potential lawsuits right now from other individuals, other companies who wanted to bid, but were told no. Their bids wouldn't be accepted because they never put in a pellet boiler system, when in fact that had nothing to do with what was being bid on.
Representative McCarthy, I don't know if we actually have a potential lawsuit. I don't think we should.
I said there are potential lawsuits.
That's what I said.
Yes.
I don't think we have potential lawsuit.
Well, maybe you don't, but I do. And I have the right to say it. There are potential lawsuits. I'm not saying there are lawsuits. I'm saying there is the potential for a lawsuit for being taken out of a bid because they didn't put a stove in, and then we found out that the people that got the bid never put one in either, and that's not what the bid was for in the first place.
If I could speak to that, we had at least 3 pellet companies come into us with bids. One was going to own the equipment, and we would have to buy the pellets from them. We decided that wasn't the way to go. Another one came in that was foreign made, and because of the grants it had to be American made, and that's why we went with this biomass, because they're American made. So I don't see any of these pellet companies coming back to us for
I'm not talking about the
good reason.
bid for the purchase of the pellet boiler system. I'm talking about the bid to install it.
Could I be online if I move the question?
Yes, because
Let's go ahead.
I haven't even made my motion yet. My amendment to the motion yet. Have you recognized me?
I have.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
If I didn't, why, I have.
Okay.
Representative Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to make my motion, and then I'd like to speak to my motion after I make the amendment to the motion. And the motion is to insert after, I believe the word after the delegation, right there, I believe.
at the end.
Okay. Yeah, near the end.
Demonstrate to the delegation.
Right, demonstrate to the delegation, and then the amendment is in accordance with the RSA 24:13, and I believe contained within the minutes of the delegation meeting on March 22nd, 2010. Because that annotates why the delegation believes that you don't have the authority to spend the additional $375,000.
I'm not sure how you're reading that, if you don't mind. You're saying now in accordance with RSA 24:13?
Yes.
And the minutes.
Yeah.
And the minutes from the March 22nd, 2010 meeting. I think that's the minutes. I've got a couple sets of minutes, so I apologize.
Those are the ones.
That talks about they can only spend the
Last
monies.
page,
And what's the date on that specifically?
March 22nd, 2010. Down at the bottom.
Right. Go ahead.
And now I'd like to speak to the motion. Essentially, what Chapter 4, Article 13 of the powers, designate the powers of the delegation. So I'll just quickly read it to you. Here's what it says. Roman numeral 1, the power to raise county taxes, to make appropriations for the use of the county, and to authorize the purchase of real estate for its use, the sale and conveyance of its real estate, the erection, enlargement, or repair of its buildings exceeding an expense of $5,000, and issuing of bonds for its debts shall be vested in the county convention. Okay? So what's that saying is anytime you do a repair or do any renovations to a building on this complex that's just over $5,000, you have to ask our specific permission. We do not believe that you have done that. And this is why. When we approved the bond and we approved the budget, that was in February of 2010. The whole entering into the idea of getting a pellet boiler was after we had approved the bond and the plan for the nursing home. we have made no further action about these extra costs of the installation of it. We made an approval for, I believe the number was $410,000